very good afternoon to you once again when we're drawing into the last week of the Vuelta a España. This is stage 15. In case you missed what happened over the weekend, this man, Alberto Contador, complete with a pink-armed glasses from his Giro victory, is now in the gold leader's jersey. He took that on stage 13 on the Angler route. It's a bad day for some, but not for him, as he danced away from his main opposition to take the gold leader's jersey. Then yesterday on stage 14, he rode the wheel of Ezequiel Mosquera along with teammate Levi Leipheimer. Mosquera trying to put time into his nearest rival for the podium, Carlos Sastre, and making good benefit of that was Alberto Contador, this time in the gold leader's jersey. 2 victories in 2 days in the high mountains for the man from Madrid. This is how the overall classification stands at the moment. Contador is 1:17 ahead of teammate Levi Leipheimer. Sastre at 3:41. Mosquera inches closer, 4:35. That's the real battle at the moment. Further down, Marzu Bruzigin continues to impress, 12th overall. Nicolas Roche, fantastic tour for him so far, 14th. And the resurgent Jean Gadret rounds out the top 15. Yesterday, Cees de Pan put the team on the front, going for the stage win with that man Alejandro Valverde. The day before, it had been the work of Yuska Telescari. Now, as far as teams go, it's Astana back in charge. And we'll see a lot more of that man, Azan Bazayev, doing work on the front in the next few days. This is the parcours today, 202 kilometers. 1 first category climb, a second and a third. 2 intermediate sprints. Running as we do from the start at Sudilero to Ponferrada today. Well, there is a large group went away this morning on this 202 kilometer route. Today it's lumpy, as they'd say. It's up and down, with about 60 kilometers to go. The men who went away in the break are a very varied and talented group of breakaway guys. Mati Brechel from CSC, Jose Luis Arrieta from the AG2R Le Mondial squad, Olivier Bonner of Bouygues Telecom, David Arroyo and Javier Thandio, both of whom are from Cees de Pan, of course. And this is one of them in our shots now. It's David Arroyo, all by himself by the look of it. Sebastian Minal and Nick Noyens, both from Cofidis. Mikel Astelosa from Euskel Telescari. Philippe Gilbert of the Francis de Jeux squad. Heinrich Hausler from Gerolsteiner. Alessandro Venotti from Liquigas. Juan Manuel Garate of Quickstep. Theo Elting of Rabobank. Peter Jacobs from Silence Lotto. Mikhail Ignatiev from the Tinkoff squad. And then they were caught by Paulo Tirolongo of Lamprey and David Garcia of the Jacobo Galicia squad. Arroyo's just broken away from the main group. He's got 28 seconds, as you can see, and 12 minutes and 20 seconds back to the peloton. And a real breakaway man's day today. And Cees de Pan trying to get something out of this, having missed out once again on the stage victory for their really big favourite. And you may have seen yesterday that when the next best placed man on general classification for Cees de Pan, Joaquim Rodriguez, came flying past a completely shattered Alejandro Valverde yesterday on the higher slopes of the finish. He just looked up, looked across at Rodriguez going past him. There's a little exchange of looks. I think Rodriguez looking a bit scared, actually, and Valverde just got onto that wheel and dug as deep as he could and stayed in there. Didn't like the teammate passing and thought, here we go, this is it. It wasn't even a slow down for him. He just had to get onto the wheel. Cees de Pan would love another victory out of this in their national tour. Sean.
Well, of course, it's not been a successful tour for them. They have won a stage with Valverde, but a team like that, they would be expecting much more. And Valverde was coming into this race as one of the big favourites, but he's lost out big time. And we were asking the question when he lost time the other day through a tactical error. Was that going to be a real disaster? But when we see yesterday's results, he cracked once again, and that is the problem for Alexander Valverde. The big tours, he always seems to have a day when he loses a bit of time. And yesterday, we see the crack coming again. After the day to Angle Leroux, which was a great performance, because on that sort of climb he was looking very promising once again, but yesterday started to stuff a long ways out, and it just hangs over him again. A big tour, can he ever win one? And I think within Case Pang, they're disappointed with this race so far, and now they know for the general classement, for the podium, it's not going to be really possible for them. I can't see it, so they're going to go out and try and get stage victories. And we can see today they've sent 2 men out on the break, and they were very active in the beginning. They were doing a lot of attacking, and that tells us they're trying to break up the race, open up the race a bit, and take what they can from here to Madrid on Sunday.
Yes, he's gone a long way out. David Arroyo launched the first attack out of the group. 60 kilometers still to go, but there's absolutely no reaction from anybody behind. So slow behind, in fact, that there is Paolo Bettini doing a bit of a track stand, waiting for them to get up here, just to get the rhythm going again within the peloton, right the way across the road. The Astana boys are spread. And there goes David Arroyo over the top of this categorized climb, the second category, Alto de Corral de los Lobos. Coming as it does after 140 kilometers, still 62 kilometers to go for this man. He gains 10 points. It's immaterial in terms of the mountains competition, which is still being led by David Moncoutier, and very handsomely too. In fact, it is the only competition now that is not being led by Alberto Contador. David Moncoutier has 127 points. Contador is second in the competition at 84. Then Christophe Kern, who spent a day on the break on the way to the Angle, remember, has 80 points. But the combined jersey, the overall jersey, being held by Alberto Contador, as is the points jersey as well. 110 plays 99. Equal now Van Avermaet and Alejandro Valverde on 99 points, Leipheimer on 86. So an impressive display by Alberto Contador. He's got 3 out of the 4 jerseys so far. Van Avermaet will be going for that. Will Alejandro Valverde switch his attention to gaining a jersey rather than as well as anything else, or as instead of anything else, Sean? He has a shot at getting the points jersey.
Well, I think yes, the points jersey is a possibility there, but it's it's not a it's not anything great for Valverde, the points jersey. I think stage victories, if he can pick up a few stage victories, but it's going to be difficult, because when you look at the route left to Madrid, there's not a lot of opportunities where Valverde is going to get away. He's not going to be left away as well, because he's in that position, the general classement. He's out of a place on the podium, but still he's not in an area where you can allow him to get into a break, because for the other ones who are up ahead of him there in the general classement, they're not going to allow him to leapfrog up in the classement, because then he comes a danger man. And of course the time trial on the penultimate stage on Saturday, he could do a lot of damage in that. If he gets within a place on the podium, he's a dangerous man. When you look at the riders that are up ahead, from Mosquera for example, Sastre, they are going to be worried about him, so I cannot see him getting into a break, as his teammates have done today, because they are further down the general classement. But he's in the position now where he's blocked really, and it's going to be difficult. But possibly the next best thing then is take a jersey to Madrid, and as you said, the points jersey is possible there.
Very warm today out on stage 15. This is the Alto de Corral de los Lobos. 140 kilometers into today's 202 at the summit, running from Sudiliero to Ponferrada today. And Paolo Bettini still hanging in there. Of course, the shortest place in the Italian team, but the rest of the team being named today. And one of the other favourite one-day riders in, who is also riding in this Vuelta España, not named, Pipo Pozzato, not named in the final lineup, Sean.
No, and surprise. It's a surprise, I suppose, to a lot of people. It was a little bit of a surprise to me. But Ballerini said, well, he didn't have enough results. He was asked the question, why is Pipo Possato not in the team? And he said, well, he probably missed on some results this year. Not a good enough excuse for not selecting him in the team. I think it's rivalry there, and we know with Possato, he has ambitions and he's that sort of rider. I think Ballerini and Bettini, when it comes down to the final, he's going to maybe ride for himself in the World Championships, and that is the reason.
That's always been a problem with him, isn't it?
Selection, yes.
Yeah, it's always been the problem with him. Is the sort of whole team player thing is doesn't sit well on his shoulders.
No, certainly not. And when you look at the selection, of course, you see Cunego is in there. I don't reckon Cunego is maybe a better rider than Possato at the moment. He's been in breaks, but he's certainly not had a great tour either. He's got out there in a break and tried to go for a stage victory, but still he's not in magnificent shape. But I think with Cunego, it's more sure in the end you can rely on him as a team man, and that's the reason he's in there.
Well, the gap is growing out and out and out. 13:50 we have here. Race radio telling us it's even more, so the graphics have to catch up a little bit. We're at the moment, the full rundown, by the way, for the Italian squad: Bettini, Rebellin, Ballan, Cunego, Paolini, Gabriel Bossisio, Marzio Brugigin, Andrea Tonti and Matteo Tozzato. Anybody who you thought was a bit of a surprise in there, Sean, at all? Yep, new jersey for Bettini. Bike handling skills, that's what we want. And the all-important helmet getting out very quickly as well. Big problems if you leave that off. I'll have to get that back onto his head fairly quickly. Good man. Anybody who you were particularly surprised with, Sean, left out or brought in? Bossisio's been riding very well again this year. He had a very good Giro and has ridden pretty well at the back end of the season. Paolini again has come into form very well, just at the right time. Ballan has been in good form. Rebel, an extraordinary finish on the Angleroo the other day. Anybody who really surprises you?
No, not really anybody surprised me. I think they're all in there, and always I think a job that can be done, they can do it in there. And there's, when you look at the list of riders, it's a strong team. Leonardo Bertagnoli, he last year was magnificent at the World Championships, and I'm a little bit that he maybe wasn't. He's in the reserves, of course, but maybe not as good as he was last year. But certainly last year, I think he was one of the best men in the Italian squad, because he was riding on the front of the bunch for lap after lap. Pretty early in the race, halfway through the race, but in the end he was there for a long time as well. But certainly, there's always a few names there that you can say could also be in. But that is a problem with the Italians. They have a lot of riders, capable of doing very well in the Worlds, and there's a lot of other countries would love to be able to take on the riders and have a select from the Italian team.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, maybe they could all change nationality. That would be good. Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr if you've got any comments or questions. We are, of course, live next week on the World Championships. They are all on consecutive days, starting on Tuesday right the way through. There's no rest day this year at all in the World Championships. It just goes straight the way through, starting on Tuesday. And Sean and I, and Emma and Sean and I will be on duty. If you've got any questions or comments about yesterday's performance or this weekend's performances by Alberto Contador or the Astana team, or Alejandro Valverde, or the ride of Ezequiel Mosquera, which we're going to discuss in just a second, or that of Carlos Sastre, Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr is the email address to be using for us here in the commentary box. Mosquera, Alvaro Pino, the Director Sportive of Mosquera's Jacobo Galicia team, less than happy with the way that Alberto Contador and Levi Leipheimer rode on the wheel of Mosquera up the last climb yesterday.
Yes, not happy at all, and to read between the lines, I think he was hoping that they would just stay in his wheel and allow him to take the stage victory yesterday. And I suppose there's a little bit of point there, because Mosquera, he could be a difficult one as we go on into the race, but where is the terrain to do it? And I think that's going to be the problem. If there was more mountain top finishes, or mountains very close to the end, he could cause some problems. But certainly it wasn't the case yesterday, and Contador was going to go for that stage and try and take the bonifications, take another bit of time from his rivals, and I suppose from Leiphammer, who he took a little bit more with the time bonification, but certainly Mosquera was very impressive yesterday. He caused the damage and really blew out Sastre, Valverde, and caused the made it very difficult in the last number of kilometres for the Royals, who were just hanging in there, and he really blew them out the rear door.
He certainly did. Just the sort of slope that suits him. Pushing away, certainly not so hard that it destroyed everybody in one big swoop, but when they all went with him and he kept that sort of pace on, it was only the two Astana boys that could stay with him, Alejandro Valverde and Carlos Sastre, going bang, big style. Jose Luis Arrieta and the rest of the boys in the breakaway. Just to fill you in on who the breakaway is, we will take a short break, but let's fill you in on those names again. Bretschel from CSC, Arrieta, this man here from AG2R, Olivier Bonner of Bouygues Telecom, Arroyo's gone up the road, Thandio is teammate K-Stepan, Mina and Noyens from Cofidis, and Astolosa, Gilbert Hausler, Vanotti, Garate, Eltink, Jacobs. Welcome back. Sorry, we had a bit of a rush on there to give you everybody in the breakaway just before the break. They called the break very quickly, so I'll do it properly this time. Bretschel, CSC, Arrieta from AG2R Le Mondial, Olivier Bonner of Bouygues Telecom, Arroyo and Thandio, both from K-Stepan, although Arroyo's gone a little bit further up the road. Mina and Nick Noyens, both from Cofidis. Astolosa from the Juska Telescadi squad. Philippe Gilbert of Francis de Jure, Heinrich Hausler from Gerolsteiner, Alessandro Vanotti from Liquigas, Juan Manuel Garate of Quickstep, Theo Eltink of Rabobank, Peter Jacobs of Silence Lotto, Mikhail Egnatev of the Tinkoff Credit System squad, Paolo Tirolongo of Lampre, and David Garcia de Pena of Jacobo Galicia. They are the men in the break. And at the moment, it is David Arroyo who's gone up the road, and absolutely not happening in peloton, because we've got Astana spread right the way across the road, completely dictating the pace. And somebody from that breakaway will be today's victor. David Arroyo wants it to be. They have 13 minutes plus of the lead at the moment with 53 kilometers to go. So, what's been in the news today, Sean? Let's start with the Tour de l'Avenir. Another, another new name to look out for. A Belgian, a third Belgian in the history of the Tour de l'Avenir to win, after Eddie Scheppers, who of course was the great domestique partner of Stephen Roach, and Johan Brunel, and we all know about him. Brunel winning in 1990, Eddie Scheppers winning in 77. Got a new name on the block for the Belgians.
Yes, we certainly have, and it's a name, Beglands. He seemed to, put in a good performance. First of all, the race during the week. He's been up there a number of days and have got the yellow jersey, I think, for 3 or 4 days. And of course, they had a stage in the Pyrenees, which was a difficult one with a mountaintop finish, and he held on and won the race there. So it's certainly it's promising. And the l'Avenir, if you look back, the winners of the l'Avenir over the past 20-25 years, a lot of those riders have come through and be quite good professionals. And the names you mentioned there, of course, Scheppers had a very good career, and Brunel, of course, also he had a good career, although we probably know him better now for his qualities as a director of sportive, because of what he has done with Lance Armstrong. But still, he won the Tour of l'Avenir and went on to be a very good professional, and I think, was it 4th, I see, or 5th in the Tour of Spain a number of years ago. I forgot that, really. and he's won stage in the Tour of France, Tour of Spain,
Yes.
so had a very good career. But certainly, it's a name that I think we will see in the future. This winner of the Tour de l'Avenir, and it's surprising, I suppose, as well that the Belgians haven't won more Tour of l'Avenir, because they've always been there with a team, and when they've only won 3 times, because that race has gone on for a long number of years.
Tour de l'Avenir, Tour of Hope. Jan Beekmans, the man to watch. Young Belgian rider, 3rd man to do so after Eddie Scheppers in 1977 and Johan Bruneel in 1990. That's not long ago, really, is it? Actually, 1990, 18. Well, I suppose it is, but it doesn't seem that long ago. Oh dear, I'm getting old. That's what it is. Doesn't see. He's going to Top Sport Vlaanderen next year, by the way, is Beekmans, so look out for him. Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr. We've got plenty of time for your questions and comments today. There had to be one. Do you think Contador and Leipheimer will welcome Lance Armstrong back if he comes back to the Astana squad? Presumably, says Scott in Edinburgh. Well, before we go on to that, as they go over the top of the Corral, just a little bit more news. He's throwing more irons into the fire, is Lance. It seems to be that he was talking to the Birmingham Post. That's not or the Birmingham News. That's not Birmingham, Great Britain. That's Birmingham, Alabama. Talking to them recently at the end of the 12-hour mountain bike race he's just finished this weekend. Gave an interview and he said, well, my biggest thing is to raise cancer awareness. We've done it very well in the United States. I want to do it elsewhere. So the biggest thing for me is to race all around the world. Australia, South America, this, that. So that doesn't sit particularly well with being in a team that wants to target just the Grand Tours. He said it would be a mistake to think I'm just coming back for winning an 8th Tour de France. He knows how to play the publicity bandwagon, doesn't he, Sean?
Yes, well, of course, he certainly does, and from the past we know that how he can do it, and he's been magnificent that way, not only in the bike but also the publicity bandwagon, as you said. I think he can play it well, and I think it's going to be interesting to follow this one to see what he's exactly going to do. We did talk about his program, of course, the European circuit he's going to do, starting off with the Paris-Nice here and then doing the Dauphiné, and then Tour de France was on it, but now we're seeing maybe he'll do other races as well. So I think in a couple of weeks there's going to be a press launch, and we'll probably have more of a clearer picture from then.
Got your invite yet?
No, haven't got it. I was checking the post this morning, but still hasn't arrived.
Me neither. Okay. Leads on to another question, actually, from Roland in Redruth in Cornwall, right down the southwest of the United Kingdom. Has there ever been a rider riding a tour who's owned a team, or has there ever been a rider? That is it. Has there ever been a rider riding in a tour that has owned a team? Well, Lance, in fact, owns part of Tailwind Sports, which is the team that owned Discovery Channel and runs the license. They had to get the Pro Tour license, and they are the people who run the team. There's always an operating company behind the teams, and Tailwind Sports, part of Discovery, and of course Astana now, partly owned by Lance Armstrong. So and that's when he was riding, actually. So now he's retired, of course, doesn't make any difference. But yes, when he was riding, that was certainly the case. There's Nick Nuyens. He's off to pastures new at the end of the year. I think perhaps Cofidis pulling back their programme, not being quite as international, maybe looking at some of their home races, consolidating a little bit. Nuyens thinking, well, I think it's time to move maybe back to my homeland, and he's heading back towards Belgium.
Yes, he is going. Well, he's going to Holland, isn't it? Rabobank.
Is he going to Rath? Or he's going to Quickstep? And he's going north anyway.
Yes, I think it's Rabobank, actually. There's so much movement at the moment, and we've been talking about it since the Tour of France, really, and ever since that there's a lot of movement. And the first thing is there's rumours going about that this rider's talking with that team, and in the end of the day, you get confused with it all. But I think it's Rabobank Nuyens is going to, and he's been at the Cofidis team. He came there. I think he was a great help to Chavanel in the race he won, certainly the northern races this year. But Cofidis were expecting a bit more from him, and I think he went for a very good salary there as well for the 2 years, and maybe not. They're not prepared to give that again, so he's moving on, and certainly I think his performance in the past year hasn't been as good, hasn't been as promising as maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, winner in Het Volk 2 or 3 years ago, beginning of the classic season. So a good rider, but maybe Cofidis and he are not sort of best suited. He might well suit it going back north again. Talking of this merry-go-round and rumour mill for signings, I noticed on cyclingnews.com that they were reporting there was a rumour that Tor Hushovd was going to the Cervelo test team. Well, remember, guys, you heard it here last week. He is going to the Cervelo test team. That is confirmed. Inyo Quest has also been linked with him, and I can say that that's probably a very positive link. Interesting, though, the grapevine seems to be going around that the Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez is also going to the Cervelo test team. Now, that's not what we heard. We heard there were rumours that he was possibly heading to Italy and possibly to Katusha. Lots of speculation still, Sean, about people all over the place.
Yes, certainly there is a lot, and I think this year it seems to be running a bit later. You know, from the past, this time there'd be a lot more the riders signed up, and it would be, you know, 90% it would be finalised. But there seem to be a lot of places and a lot of riders still, you know, talking about going to this team and going to the other team, but haven't signed up as yet. Of course, this year's a bit of a change as well. There's, you know, quite a few teams who are pulling out of sponsorship, not continuing, and then the teams, I think some of them will reduce in the numbers. And Cofidis, of course, maybe. It could be one of them teams where they're not going to have these 30+ riders, 25 riders, maybe 23 riders is sufficient, and that's also you know, making the places much more difficult for riders to get. So a lot of the managers are just waiting and seeing what's available, and I think it's running a bit later this year than the past.
Maybe is actually. There's a lot more speculation. This is your breakaway group. It's large and with some good riders in there, maybe a little bit too large for when we get towards the end. Carl from Harare in Zimbabwe, although he's not actually in Zimbabwe, he's in London apparently, saying, Sean, what is the tactic of the Astanas riding their way across the road? Are they all just cream cracker, or are they just taking it as an unofficial rest, having a team spread right the way across the road, blocking the road?
Well, I think that's just controlling the situation on the front without having to make any effort. If you push a lot of your riders up front there, you just ride along at a very casual pace, and it's not easy for the riders behind to come through, but they can do it. If they really want to go and they attack the riders, you know, they will push through. But everybody is just happy to sit in here at the moment in the main bunch, because the break is so far out. Anybody with an idea of going for a stage today is not up there, or haven't a man up there from the team, well, then it's really over at the moment, and it's going to be, as you say, the riders who are out there in the break at the moment is between those guys for the stage victory today. And Astana doesn't have to really push it, they just ride along, nobody in any danger for the general classement, so they just stroll along at a very casual pace and wait for another day, and you know, not put in any effort at all, or as little effort as they need, just to get through this stage and to take Contador and take Leiphammer to the end of this stage, and wait for another day, because I think there will be other days where the situation, they might, you know, have to control it much more. There could be dangerous riders get into a break, and that's when you need the manpower and you need the riders as fresh as possible.
Plenty of time for questions and comments today. It's what a difference in pace a day makes. Contador yesterday won whilst wearing the gold leaders jerseys, the second riders to do so in this year's Vuelta a España. Remember, Daniele Bonatti won a stage whilst he was wearing the gold leaders' jersey as well. Here's the question for the day. You can take part in it if you want. You don't have to, of course. Eurosportcycling@hotmail.fr. The last time there were at least 2 different riders who won a stage as the leader of the Vuelta. Can you tell me when it was and who they were? The last time at least 2 different riders who were wearing the leader's jersey at the time won a stage in the Vuelta. Can you name the year, and can you name the riders? That would be interesting. Eurosportcycling@hotmail.fr. Jeff, thanks very much. I always thought the Tour de l'Avenir was roughly translated as Tour of Hope, but he says Tour of the Future. There we go. But l'Avenir has been around a long time, and it always throws up good riders. Wasn't Boysenhagen a winner of the Tour de l'Avenir? Or at least he won stages in the Tour de l'Avenir 2 or 3 years ago, and look how the way he's come through in the Colombia squad. Really been a dominant force this year. Absolutely dominant. Congratulations to Christian van der Velde, who's just won the Tour of Missouri. Nice to finish off on a high note. I was forgetting, actually, he's been a professional for nearly 10 years now. And certainly done an apprenticeship through some very tough teams. US Postal, CSC. He's come up that way. This is the sprint at Vega de España, which is the second sprint of the day. Philippe Gilbert taking the points there. The points leader's jersey is in fact held at the moment by Alberto Contador. It's sitting on the shoulders of, well, it's being shared, in fact, in terms of points by Greg van Avermaet and Alejandro Valverde. The combined jersey on the shoulders of Levi Leipheimer, sitting behind Contador. Let's explore that debate a little more. Contador, Leipheimer, what's going to happen? We're going to have a short commercial break, but after the break we'll be back with that, because it's still an interesting question. This is back just to bring you news of these two retirees. If you've been following it live on the websites, there's been some confusion as to which of the CSC riders has retired today. So we gave Scott Sunderland a quick call, and he said it is Juan Jose Cobo. What am I talking about? No. It's Hado, is what I meant to say, from CSC, who's having a bit of stomach trouble. I think he had to dig really, really deep yesterday to finish the stage, and on the way back to the hotel wasn't feeling very good. Could have some plain white rice at the end of the evening, and just couldn't eat more than about a bowl of it. So he's got a stomach bug and no energy to start really today. So he had a go, but has retired today. The other one is Artur Gajic from Milram. Both of those out of the Vuelta España today. David Revelin's gone home. He said his form was really good. He went up the Angleroo very impressively, and now just waiting his place, starting on the line in Varese. Beautiful day here today. In fact, it's pretty hot. Big group of riders out ahead at the moment. Brecel, Arrieta, Bonner, Arroyo's just up the road. Sandio, Minar, Noyens, Astelotha, Gilbert, Hausler, Vanotti, Garate, Eltink, Jacobs, Ignatiev, Terrelongo, and David Garcia. This is Jose Luis Arrieta. And I think the pace not too high, and a couple of riders thinking, well, I might as well chance my arm now, Sean. I've got sort of just about under 50 kilometres to go. We've been allowed to get away. Nobody's chasing us down. It hasn't been too heavy on the legs, perhaps. I feel all right. Might as well have a go.
Yes, well, certainly it's going to be up there for the taking with this breakaway of riders, but it's still a long way to the finish. And as we see here, Jose Luis Arrieta, it's early to go, and we can see in the breakaway what's left the breakaway, because there's a few riders that are getting dropped off of that, but it's not really very nervous there, and I think they're just waiting and leaving him hang out there, and he certainly hasn't a great advantage at the moment, so I can see it being difficult for him to hold on there. There's a lot of riders, I think, back in the group that are just waiting and waiting for the moment until he gets that distance where it's time to go, and it'll be interesting if they allow him to pull out a nice advantage of. He needs to take 2 or 3 minutes at least here on his own to have a chance to hold on.
He's got Arroyo for company up the road, so maybe the two of them can pull away a little bit further. I'm sure somebody else will try and get across as well at some point if they can. Kathy Price, who I know lives in Spain, works in Spain. Burgos, I think, isn't it? I can't remember. She writes in saying Samuel Sanchez re-signed for Euskaltel Euskadi just a couple of months ago. I hadn't heard that, I've got to say. It sounds a little bit early. I'm sure they would have wanted to. Maybe he has, but that doesn't necessarily mean he isn't talking to another team. Buyout clauses are a marvellous thing. But it's going to cost a lot. He is the Olympic champion. I hadn't heard that myself, that he'd re-signed with Euskaltel Euskadi, but the rumour mill surrounding him isn't any less for that, if it's true.
No, well, certainly if he have signed, and it doesn't say he can't move. I think in cycling now it's like in football, a contract doesn't mean a lot, and if there's a team with a very big budget they're prepared to pay, they can they can buy out these contracts, and it's not the first time certainly we've seen it in cycling. And when you look at Katusha, for example, 15 million, if they really go after a rider and the rider wants to get out of a team, well then I think it's very possible to do it.
And this now is Philippe Gilbert on the front, and he must have with him Javier Thandio, because as it appears that Arroyo is still up the road a little bit. Alberto Contador getting some medical assistance by the look of it. It's not the team car. Bee sting or insect bite or something similar, one would imagine, but doesn't look to be too bothered by it at the moment. Nothing to worry about there. Nicholas Roach, somebody writes in about Neil O'Flaherty, writing in about Nicholas Roach. I didn't expect him to be going so well this year. Have we heard any knowledge about where he's going next year? I haven't, have you?
Yes, he's going to AG2R. He signed
that's right.
a number of weeks ago. So he's certainly already signed up, and he's had a great tour, as we said, and it's great to see him, because the results he's put in this race, not alone in the flatter stages, because I think he was very much capable of that, but in the mountain stages he's put in some great performance, and let's hope he continues to grow from here.
Somebody writing in with the answer to the question as Roberto Heras and Isatro Nothal in 2003 as being the last time there was more than one winner who was wearing the gold jersey at the time to win a stage. That's, no, I have to check that. That's not the answer I've got. But I'm thinking of somebody before that. Not very happy with that, saying no, that's a waste of time. I'll just get on with it as I am. And immediately has Ribiera with him, I think, just to make sure everything is okay. Well, it's looking increasingly at the moment as if this man here you're watching, Alberto Contador, will be the only man currently riding in the peloton who has won, or will have won, all 3 Grand Tours, and in doing so he'll join a very select band indeed. Merckx, Gimondi, Anquetil, Bernardino. Bernardino is the most consistent of those, in fact, because he's won, they won 5 Tours, he won 3 Vuelta, I think, and 2 Giri. So he's won a consistent spread across them. Anquetil, Gimondi, Merckx, Ino, the others. And that's a very select group indeed. What about, though, this question that just keeps popping up in everybody's mind, certainly up in my mind, and I think a lot of other people's: what will Levi Leipheimer do if he gets to the final time trial stage, which is admittedly an uphill time trial, a mountain time trial, and he feels as though he's got the good legs? What will he do? Will he be given the order to hang back, or will he be allowed to just go for it? And if he was given an order, would he disobey it?
Well, it's difficult to hold back in the time trial. How do you say to a guy he has to hold back in the time trial? And it's the position he's in at the moment. Of course, he's going to be out in front of Contador, and that's the advantage for Contador. He can calculate on the times of Leipheimer, but you cannot just say to a rider, well, you have to slow down in the end. I certainly cannot see anybody doing that. And if Leipheimer's really on a good day and Contador maybe is suffering a little bit, losing a bit of time, as we see Contador there, he's after getting a fall. I was wondering why they were plastering up his knee there, but he's certainly after getting a spill that we can see on his shots.
Some of the shorts there now, yeah.
But yes, but the advantage for Contador at the moment is a little bit more comfortable than we've seen in the a number of days ago. 117 for Leipheimer is down on Contador, and the time trial as well. It's a short one, a relatively short 17.1 kilometres, and it's a little bit uphill. It's the second half is certainly uphill. The first bit is not too difficult, but it's difficult to see Leipheimer taking that much time out of Contador. But you never know. Leipheimer is a better time trials certainly. So at the end of a 3-week tour, depending how everybody's feeling, if a rider's starting to tire, starting to get fatigue, well then it is possible. It's certainly not all over yet, and he's Contador's not in that comfort zone because of Leipzig being the good time trialist he is.
Well, it looks like Arrieta is at the moment pushing on. No word of Arroyo, in fact. Arroyo went ahead of the group, and whether he's gone back or not, I've not seen him come back, Arroyo. But maybe he has been brought back by that breakaway group. And certainly they're concentrating on Jose Luis Arrieta as our race leader Alberto Contador gets pulled up towards the front at the moment. Obviously had a bit of a spill. You can see on the left-hand side, left-hand panel of the shorts there, darkened, but seems to be okay. No great panic with Andreas Kloden now with him, pacing him back towards the front. People who did get a bit of a clout, Igor Anton the other day, he confirmed after the end of the stage, actually, we didn't know till after the end of the stage that he has had a busted collarbone from that crash on the same day as the Angliru, the penultimate descent. And also a man who crashed there as well was Wouter Weyland, the sprinter from Quick-Step. He went straight over the Armco barrier and straight down the ravine and had to clamber his way back up again, thankfully unhurt other than a few cuts and bruises, but nothing else damaged. Jose Luis Arrieta then from AG2 Le Mondial, a Spanish rider, has been with him for 3 years now, I think, AG2, and was previously with Banesto squad, and he rides some good races for them. He's not one of those Spaniards, Sean, that sticks just to Spanish races. You see him all over the place. He's a very good strong rider. They don't just sort of wheel him out like maybe being in Fernandez. We see it a lot of the time wheeled out for Cofidis. He was at the Andalusia squad before that, but this, you see Arrieta all over the place.
Yes, well, of course, with AG2R, he does quite a big program, and I think Arrieta has been in that with Banesto, and moving on to AG2R, he seems to like to go out and do race outside of Spain, certainly. So, he's been in the Tour of France many times, and he's a rider that's been around a long time, but not with a huge amount of victories.
Welcome back. Jose Luis Arrieta is the man ahead of his breakaway companions at the moment. He's one of the older men in the peloton, 37 years of age now. Turned 37 back in June. And a decent climber and a good all-rounder. And he's pulled away from the rest of his breakaway companions. And churning that big gear around now. Down on what, the 13 or the 12 there, but yeah, just to try and get as much advantage as possible, and really going for it today. 202 kilometers. He knows it's his chance because the peloton are not interested in tracking him down at the moment. They're not interested in tracking anybody down, quite frankly. They've got a huge gap grown out. The other guys who are with him in today's break: Bretschel, Bonnet, Arroyo, Sandio, Minard, Noens, Astelotha, Gilbert, Hausler, Vanotti, Garate, Elting, Jacobs, Ignatiev, and then they were joined a little later on by Tiralongo and David Garcia. Well, I'm not sure they're going to let him get away, Sean.
No, certainly not doing it, and we can see 42 seconds of the advantage, and there's a chasing group here, and we did see Gilbert with some other riders just a little bit ahead of that group, but have they all got back together? It looks very like so.
Yeah, it does look as if they're all back together. Bretschel sitting near the front. This then is back in the peloton. It was being controlled by the men from Astana. It's now got Sylvain Chavanel sitting on the front for Cofidis, who was in a long breakaway yesterday. Trying to mop up as many of the maximum points as possible at the top of each mountain. His teammate David Moncoutier is the only man to have a firm grip on a jersey that isn't Alberto Contador's. Wearing the mountains classification jersey is Moncoutier. Every other jersey is on the shoulders of Contador, obviously being held by somebody else in his stead, but that is the way it is at the moment. And Arrieta, he's giving it a good go. He's committed himself, and that's all he can be asked to do at this stage, really.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly worth a chance and have a go at it here, because that advantage of 42 seconds, if they start to play around back in this chasing group, he might, just be allowed to pull out a gap. As we see 30 kilometres to go, it is possible to do that, but will they ride together? That is the question now. We can see they're starting to work a bit together. Sometimes there's a lot of jumping about and nobody wants to really put it on the front, and there's attacks and then it slows down again. That's what Arrieta needs, to pull out that 2-minute advantage, and then it is possible for him to go on. But at the moment they seem to be working quite well. But again, there's riders who's going to sit on the rear, because this group is still quite big, although not as big as it was earlier on. There was quite a big breakaway of riders. It's down to about 15 riders now, but still the advantage 42 seconds about for Arrieta. It's not anything to start getting excited about.
Well, all the Cofidis men on the front here, as well as Rabobank, and just trying to obviously limit gaps, I think. Arrieta, the only Spaniard in the AG2R Le Mondial squad, well, should I say team, for the Vuelta España, the 37-year-old, and just 2 victories in total in his Palmares. I think this is about the 5th or 6th time he's ridden the Tour of Spain, and the pursuing group, looks like Philippe Gilbert keeps waving people through, saying, come on, get moving, let's get in working together. No, it's not Gilbert, it's one of the others. Somebody is just not quite happy with the way things are going. It's not particularly well organised. Gerate, I think it was, actually, just dropping to the back, and that's aids the cause of Jose Luis. Back in the cars, Mati Breccio is the man from CSC, right at the back. Arrieta's committed himself completely now. Won the Tour of Asturias way back in 2002, and won that stage in the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago into Ciudad Real. 43 seconds. It's not growing out much further at the moment. He's been professional a long old time, turned professional back in 1993, would you believe? And he rode the Tour of Italy in the very first season he turned professional. I was quite surprised to see him and Francisco Mancebo going to AG2R when the Illes Balears squad just metamorphosed once again. I didn't sort of have them down as riders who would be going and riding and living in France, but well, we know that Mancebo is no longer part of the picture in cycling in general at any level, any high level. And Arrieta stayed and been happy and made a good career with AG2R. Were you surprised when you saw them signing up for French side?
Yes, it was surprising to see Mancebo and Arrieta signing for AG2R, but they were building at that time, and of course Mancebo had some good performance in the Tour de France in the general classement up there, in quite a good general classement finish a number of years, and AG2R were looking for a rider of that standard, and they took him on, but it did not last long, of course, because then he was involved with the Puerto affair, and he was dropped by AG2R very quickly before the Tour actually before the Tour de France, just a number of days before it actually, and Arrieta continued on. He seems to be happy with the French team, but of course, you know, they live down in Spain, and they just come to the events here. You know, there was no question, I think, of any time moving to France, but he's worked out well in the team, and I think they're happy with him because, you know, they're not going to hold him within the AG2R team unless they're happy with his performance. And I think he's a good domestique first of all, and you can depend on to be in breakaway as well, because we see him a lot of times in the big tours here. He gets into the right moves, into the breakaway of the day.
And we've got Garate and Arroyo in the break, just behind, sitting behind Sylvain Chavanel. And that's the only reason I can really think of as why Chavanel will be riding away at the front here. What do you think's going on here, Sean? I think they are trying to limit losses somewhere, but it's difficult to see exactly who it's for. Garate and Arroyo are the two best placed men in the classification, but they are behind Chavanel.
Yes, and of course, I think the reason that Cofidis are taking it up here is Garate is the one who was, you know, at about 28 minutes in the general classement. But if they allow to grow as it was there, 16 minutes, but if it goes out to 20 minutes, well then Garate will move a long ways up in the general classement. And if you look at that 9 or 10 minutes in the general classement, you have Muncotti, who was at 9:32, and he's in 9th position. And I think that's what the Cofidis are just starting to stir up a bit here for Muncotti not to lose his place in the top 10, because now into the final week there is riders and there's teams who will start riding to defend those positions. And you know, Muncotti, if he can get a top 10 in this race, it would be a good performance for him. You know, in a 3-week tour, a national tour, it would be certainly a magnificent end of season for him. And the mountain jersey, it looks like he can take that all the way to Paris, so it would be a good tour in general for the Cofidis team.
9 minutes and 32 seconds he's sitting at the moment. Gesink is at 5:49, so quite a way ahead of that. He's the best placed Rabobank man on the general classification, and Moncoutier is the best placed Cofidis man, as I said, 9:32, 9th spot overall. 56 seconds the gap between Arrieta and the pursuing group. They seem to be a little bit more together, and nobody's really that concerned. They've got him in their sights. You can see him up ahead there at the end of the road. But they're not really working together very well, if at all. Could be the other side of the coin. The question, by the way, for today, and you still got time to answer it if you wanted to, was Contador is the second rider in this year's Vuelta to win a stage whilst wearing the gold jersey. Banati's been the other one. When was the last time we saw a leader, or more than one leader, shall we say, winning a stage? So they would be wearing the leader's jersey and then winning a stage in it. I can tell you that we had one answer, Heras Nothal, which is wrong. I think it's not the answer I've got, and I don't think it's actually the case. But I'm thinking of another one before that time, and in fact quite a while ago now. So we're after the last time that at least two different riders won a stage whilst wearing the leader's jersey. Eurosport Cycling at hotmail.fr is the address to write to. Jose Luis Arrieta has 16 minutes and 40 seconds on the peloton. It's not really a problem. It's a case of Rabobank now and Cofidis just chopping the gap down enough to preserve their men's places in the general classification. Beautiful bike riding weather today. We've had it all thrown at us so far. We only need a bit of snow now. We'll be all right.
Yes, well, certainly we've had all sorts of conditions. Starting out, the race was, you know, so warm. It was just really difficult for the riders, and then as we, you know, came a bit north, it certainly hit them big time. And you know, there was days in the Pyrenees there where it was wet and very, very cold, and it certainly, you know, made it difficult for a lot of riders. And you know, you just have to think about it. 35, 37 degrees, you know, just really, really warm, and then 2 days later or a day later you have, you know, just cold 15, 14 degrees, and it is, you know, difficult for the body to adapt to that, and you know, it is also a dangerous situation to be in, because you can catch cold, and as we know, as you're in really good shape, that's the time you're so prone to catching something, and you have to be very careful out on the road, but more so after the event when you finish. You have to, get change very quickly, because we all know when you're out there working at it, you're not at too much of a risk. But when you stop, you have to really be careful that you don't catch a cold. And when you're in the better shape you're in, it seems to be more easy to catch something.
Sooner or later, somebody from the pursuing group is going to have to take the initiative, and 2 or 3 people start working together and going off after Jose Luis Arrieta. He's got to 55 seconds now of a gap with 22 kilometers to go, so it's steadily growing out. Not quickly, but it is growing out. He could do with a little bit more time, but it's not particularly well marshaled behind. People are not... let's get that camera bike out of the way. Come on. And they're all going to latch onto the back of that. And finally, riders going off. Looks like Heinrich Hausler, who's decided, right, well, enough's enough, I'm going to give it a go. And still riders looking over their shoulders, and Nick Noyens is going to go across, is he? It looks like Noyens, a wide-shouldered stance, Paolo Tirolongo in his wheel, and one of the guys from Case Japan has gone around the outside. There are 2, Javier Thandio and David Arroyo in this group. There is Hausler, and it's David Garcia. 2 riders setting off in pursuit. This is what's going to happen, isn't it, Sean? That they all look to somebody else to do the work until such point as the balance swings and they've got to start working together.
Well, that's
or a few have got to start working.
Yes, and the problem is to get us to work together. There's a lot of riders here, like Nick Noyens, Philippe Gilbert, for example. They would like to see this group working together and not allowing our breakaway rider to pull out or reach a big advantage. And it's not happening here for them. We can see they're going to that attack mode, and that's the difficult one, to see Heisler going again. And advantage, I think, to the breakaway Luis Arrieta. If they can continue at that, maybe he could pull out another little bit of advantage. And certainly if they get together, 5 or 6 riders start working, they will reel him in very, very quickly. But the advantage is not growing enough at the moment for him to be in the comfort zone. No,
he's not quite in the comfort zone yet. Interesting, actually, when I was looking at the general classification this morning, and get the marker pen out, you look at things, look at riders who may try and do something during the day. I had that blue marker pen through Garate. I actually had it through Fletcher, Gilbert, Pozzato, Schumacher and Noyen. So we've got some in there, which is quite good. Heinrich Hausler, on the other hand, wasn't in that list, but nice to see him in this group and giving it a good go. And Hausler really kick-starting things, lying 91st overall on the general classification. He's 1 hour 26:42 down. Funnily enough, just behind Filippo Pozzato, we've been speaking about today quite often. We've got Thandio with him now from the Case Japan squad. There is a nice head-on shot of Jose Luis Arrieta. What about the run-in today, Sean? We're running into Ponferrada for the 10th time in the history of the Vuelta a España. The first time we came to Ponferrada was way back in 1942. Delio Rodriguez, I think, was he the winner on that occasion? Delio Rodriguez, I think he probably was. 1942 was the last time, well, the first time we came to Ponferrada. The stage itself was won by Joaquim Olmos, the Spaniard, but I think that Delio Rodriguez was the winner overall, but we shall can't remember off the top of my head. Certainly Galician was dominant in that whole era. The last time we visited Ponferrada, which was for a start back in 2006. 20 kilometers to go then for Jose Luis Arrieta, 37 years of age. Massive crowds turned out once again. These are the biggest crowds I think I've seen in the Vuelta for some time. We always get good crowds in towns, but there were some terrific ones in the mountains. You never get crowds in those vast hot plains near Granada and so on. It's just too hot to stand around all day, to be honest. But Arrieta has still a way to go, and behind, the group is beginning to split up. Nobody really wants to take the initiative so far. It's Peter Jacobs who's now driving it along with Javier Thandio, Heinrich Hausler and Sebastian Minau of Cofidis. We'll take a short break and see if this resolves itself into some sort of chasing group for proper.
They want to walk tall on the world stage. But first, they have to show what they can do against the best in Europe. Want to watch the girls go high? Watch this. The Volleyball World Grand Prix, Tuesday, with Germany, Italy at 10 and Russia, France at 14:30, live on Eurosport.
We make light, lighter. Fast, faster. Small, smaller. We even try and make round, rounder. The Portage R500, the lightest laptop we've ever made. Powered by Intel Centrino. Toshiba, leading innovation.
As a boy, I loved Formula One. Today, I lead the team that brings Formula One to 4 continents. The hours are long, the deadlines are short, and the pace is relentless. In other words, it's the best job in the world.
At DHL, we have a passion for what we do, and for what you do, too.
Fifth element. Algarve, a perfect combination.
Welcome back, we're live on stage 15. Sudilero to Ponferrada. Stage 15, 202 kilometers. It's been a day where the peloton has been controlled at a lovely slow pace, or slowish pace, by Astana. Now speeding up under the guidance of Cofidis and Rabobank, who want to cut down the massive gap to this breakaway. Some of these guys will move up in the general classification and threaten their top men, people like David Moncoutier, who's lying 9th overall. Juan Manuel Garate is in this breakaway group, and he's the man who's the danger. And one of the men is the danger. David Arroyo is the other one, who's sitting right behind him on the general classification. And they will move up smartly if they stay away. 14 seconds now between Arrieta and the group pursuing him, and the kickstart that Heinrich Hausler made. It's now being chased on by Philippe Gilbert at the moment, with, I think, Noyens behind him, and then just behind that is Fandio, I think. They've decided that they had to work together. It'll all go a bit pear-shaped again when they get up to it, unless somebody clips off on a counter-attack, because they'll all be back together and all be looking to somebody else to do the work. 17 kilometers to go on this beautiful sunny day running into Ponferrada. We've still got time to answer the question. Thanks we've had a couple of answers in. Was it Sean? No, it wasn't Sean. The question I actually asked was, Contador, okay. Contador won the stage yesterday whilst wearing the leader's jersey, and Bennati has also won a stage in this year's Vuelta wearing the leader's jersey. Gilbert not happy, as trying to get people to come through and do some work. I'm not going to do it all myself, he says. Who was it, and when was the last year that a rider wearing the leader's jersey, or more than one rider, sorry, more than one rider wearing the leader's jersey took a stage victory? It's quite a while ago. And we've had one answer in, has got 2 out of 3 correct. There were 3 riders on that year who wore the leader's jersey and wore a stage whilst wearing it. Arrieta just up the road, and lots of toing and froing and discussion. How heated do these discussions get, Sean, between riders in this sort of situation? Like Gilbert there just throwing his arms and saying, I'm not doing all the work. How heated does it get?
Well, it gets very heated, and sometimes riders get aggressive, and they, quite a bit of abusive language comes out. If you're sitting on the rear, of course, you will get that, and you're just tagging along. And we can see here again, like, his attack after attack. But the problem is for Arrieta, he did not get that big advantage which he needed, and it's just coming down all the time now, because it's very aggressive. They're not riding together as such; they're just attacking each other. But I think the advantage is, of course, if you look at who's up there. there. Cofidis like have 2 riders up there. Case de Pank have 2 riders. That's always a great advantage, but they have to be going well. If there's one of them who is really, you know, cooked, as they say in cycling terms, well, he's going to be no good. But certainly, you know, there's a lot of action here in the group, and we must also look at this terrain. I think at about 12 kilometres from the finish, it kicks up a bit for a number of
it's already
kilometres.
kicking up here as well.
And
Yeah,
we're just going into that section now, so that is going to be very hard for Arieta, because the advantage he has is so slim, and with the difficult drag up here for a number of Ks, I think he's going to, you know, really struggle here to hold on out in front.
yeah, it was Olivier Bonnaire who finally caught up with him, the Bouygues Telecom rider, churning and whacking great gear as he tries to pull everybody away. Igor Astalotha went with him, but they're all now looking at each other. 15 kilometres to go. Matty Bretschel at the back there, who made a lot of his money so he could support his cycling and get keep his contract going by being a model, a male model, and he was had a really good living working for GQ and Esquire and all sorts of clothing shoots. Was in New York more than he was in Europe. And that's one way of keeping your career going. Nick Noyens just at the back here. Paolo Tirolongo is the man in the pink and blue for Lamprey, taking up the charge on the front. Olivier Bonnaire in the sky blue of Bouygues Telecom, and Arieta has got out the back door. What a shame. So 2 men now having to go off the front. It's Tirolongo and I think Fandio. It's difficult to tell from that distance, but there are 2 men, of course, from Case de Pan in this group. Still sitting in the back there, churning away on the gear on the drops, as you see him so often, is Mikhail Ignatiev. Astalotha going backwards at the moment. That looks like from Cofidis, Noyens. Gilbert just ahead of him. Garate gets onto the wheel of the Case de Pan man, probably Arroyo actually. And a little bit of a split coming. Matty Bretschel is a man that could threaten today if he can stay with his front group. He's got a good turn of speed on him, Sean Matty Bretschel, and a good classics rider. Has kept himself out of this little scrap at the front at the moment, and if he can get back onto this little group here, there he is, wearing number 7. I think he could be a big threat today.
Yes, well, certainly in this group, if you look at who's up there, and if it comes down to a sprint between, you know, most of these riders out in front, certainly Bretschel has a very good chance. If you look at the other riders, I think Noyens also is, you know, quite fast in a small group. Philippe Gilbert, of course, as well, quite a good one, but I think it's going to be a lot of this attacking and just, you know, attack after attack, and I'd be surprised if they stay together and come in with a group of, you know, 8 or 10 riders together. We can see there's, you know, riders losing contact on the rear as well, and Arieta, you know, lost contact immediately when he was pulled in with another couple of riders. So this climb has really, you know, put a real test for them. Anybody is suffering a bit, they'll have to get quite a test here, but again, as we see,
Garate
is going on the solo again.
Yeah, he's going on the solo, and behind him Tirolongo was looking over his shoulder, looking for help from Nick Noyens to get back up. They split this one. Unsurprising, I guess, that Garate can go on the hill. 13 kilometers to go. He's going for solo victory now. Is Juan Manuel Garate, winner of a stage in the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago, and a very accomplished rider. Garate, good all-round rider, favours the hills slightly more than other situations. This is the 3rd group on the road, so to speak. There is the 2nd group. Tirolongo waving through. Bretschel just getting onto the wheel of Noyens, and I think on the left-hand side is Handio. There is Arroyo. 8 seconds now Garate has as they get into another bit of a hill. Ignatiev still hanging in there at the back. I think he's one probably suffering more than most. But it's not very much of a gap. This terrain certainly suits Juan Manuel Garate rather than some of the others, though. But look out for somebody giving it a good dig here to try and reach up to Juan Manuel Garate. It's been a long day in the saddle. 202 kilometers they'll have completed by the time they get to the end. Thanks, Kathy, once again. One of our other regular contributors, Hugh, writing to you and saying, yes, I can confirm that Samuel Sanchez has re-signed for Euskaltel, but as we say, the rumours still persist, and you've heard the rumour as well about Cervelo test team, but we've also heard rumours fairly reliably about Katusha as well. So buyout clauses being banded around all over the place. Maybe, who knows? Igor Astalosa. Funny enough, he was an AG2R rider. At the back now, beginning to suffer. Noyens, I think, put the hammer down there, Sean.
Yes, Nine's going the attack, and we could see he was quite active on the front of the group there, and he was waving as well a bit earlier on, and he's probably looking for his teammate Sebastian Minard to come there and, you know, go in the attacks, and that is the advantage if you have two up in front and they're feeling good. You know, one goes with attack. If that doesn't succeed, the next one, well, it's his turn to go with it, and it's a great advantage to have, because then you can get that little rest period with two out in front. It's you know, you have two cars to play as such.
He always looks a bit older than he is, actually, Juan Manuel Garate. He's only 32. He always looks as though he's in well stuck into his 30s.
And difficult terrain here, as we see. You know,
it
it's
is, isn't it?
small road, and the surface, I think, is quite bumpy there, as we can see. So it's definitely, you know, making a lot of riders suffer. We can see on the rear, you know, riders having problems just staying in the wheel and working at it, giving it 100% just to get over this, because they know it's not a long one. So if you can cling on in there and stay with this group, well, then you're in for a chance again. As we see, Garate, he's only just, you know, what, 100 metres out in front of this group.
If that, yeah. Handful of seconds ahead of the group containing Nick Noyens. David Arroyo, I think, is one of the riders in there. Certainly Javier Thandio is suffering at the back. And Brechel, is it? Noyens, Arroyo and Brechel coming up to the rear wheel of Juan Manuel Garate. Well, they won't have too much of a gap between between those three chasers and the riders behind either. Ignatiev is, we hear from Race Radio, dropping off the back. I'm not really surprised about that, to be honest. He looked as though he was suffering a little bit earlier. This man as well, Igor Astalosa, I'm not sure is having such a great time either. He had Philippe Gilbert in front of him earlier. He's now got Javier Thandio. There is Philippe Gilbert. He's got about 4 bike lengths. And, whoops, a bit of a loss of picture, but Juan Manuel Garate is now joined by Nick Noyens. Remember, Garate's won a stage in Tour of Spain a long time ago now, 2001, and won that stage up to San Pellegrino in the Tour of Italy a couple of years ago. He was with Jens Vogt for pretty much all of the climb, and Jens Vogt let him go, tapped him on the shoulder, said, "Go on, son, go for it." And poor and Garate did. He kept going and just looked for all the world as though he'd been handed the biggest present of his life on a plate. Paulo Tirolongo and David Garcia beginning to suffer. Here we are up at the front. Interesting that Brechel deciding to ride on a different side of the road, Sean, keeping himself well away from the other three.
Yeah, he is not following the wheel for some reason. The surface a little bit better at that side, and that is possible. And you know, this hill dragging on for a long time. I think the riders will be surprised that it goes on for so long, and you know, it leveled off a bit for a while, and then it kicks up again, and it's real nasty stuff, real leg breaking stuff. And we can see, you know, the group, they're in 1s and 2s back there, everybody like on the limit here, trying to hang in and just trying to get over this one and hoping they get back on the downhill, but it's growing out all the time, because up front here our 4 riders seems to be pulling away a bit.
Well, I don't think the downhill is going to be any easier than the uphill, to be honest. Looking at this surface and this road, 14%. Brechel sits in the middle with the black shorts and the white jersey. Just looking over his shoulder now in the blue and white is Juan Manuel Garate, as David Garcia starts to try and get back up to them. Paulo Tirolongo, I'm not surprised about him, good climber, coming to join this group. There are a number of riders really suffering, though. We've got Arroyo on the far right-hand side of this group in the black and red of Case Tepang. Garcia joins them. And Garate sitting just behind Nick Noyens of Cofidis in the white and red there. Oh, that's the select group. Now, will everybody be able to get back to them as Noyens goes again behind Arroyo? We didn't see Arroyo go, but Arroyo goes, and Noyens trying to get onto the wheel. And somebody's going to have to respond, because they're almost at the top, and then they'll be onto the descent. If they get too big a gap, That'll be difficult. Good work by Nick Noyens, getting straight up there. Well, before anything really kicks off, answer the question then. 1999, Ulrich, Abraham Milano, Marcel Wurst. A couple of people got it right, Kathy being one of them. Well, that's a lightning injection of pace, Sean. He's given it a good old kick there, and that's really blown some of the other guys straight out the water.
Yes, well, certainly everybody was suffering. We could see they were just, you know, hanging in there. Some of them, Breschel, of course, he was suffering quite a lot. And when Arroyo just, you know, upped that pace a bit, certainly the other ones were, you know, already at 100%. And some of them were coming, only getting back into the group. You see Tiralong, but he was on the way back up. And if you make the effort to get across, well, then it's always going to be, you know, majorly difficult to match the attack. And I think, you know, Noyen seems to be riding quite well, because for him to be up there earlier on as well, he must be in good shape. But they're not riding up front, of course. We can see Noyens is not prepared to pull here with.
Here he goes again.
Arroyo, you know, ups the pace once again.
As soon as Garcia gets across to his back wheel and Garate gets there, that's too dangerous. Arroyo wants to try and kill people off one by one. He's not got rid of Nick Noyens yet. And Arroyo did have Javier Thandio with him, but the Case to Pan squad entirely made up of Spaniards. So we have a Spaniard with a Belgian. Spaniard riding for a Spanish-French team. Franco-Spanish team, should I say. And Nick Noyens, a Belgian, riding for a French team. And once again, they're trying to kill the legs of everybody else. These two. God, this one goes on forever. Well, you look at the course, and it doesn't look anywhere near like this steep or this long. This is an absolute killer. Matti Breschel, former male model, and great hope for the classics from Bjarne Riis's squad at CSC, beginning to really suffer. And Mikel Astoloza, he left behind just now, and Paolo Tiralongo have got back to him and passed him. Astoloza just doing the best he can. He's not a bad climber, Astoloza, and Tiralongo, of course, it was hired as a specialist climber. Back to the back wheel comes Garate and David Garcia. You can't get rid of us that easy, boys. Nice try. Now, who's going to go again? Ebby Noyens this time, as they get towards the top. Or Garcia's just going to say, right, I'm having you. Here we go, there he goes. David Garcia decides at 10 to go. If you're going to do that to me, I'll see if we can shed you on the downhill. Astoloza, he's worked well to get back up there. Tiralongo is in his wheel now. Breschel is one of the riders really suffering, and Javier Thandio is way down the road. Garate and Garcia dicing it out on the descent. This is going to be a nasty descent. I can see nasty things happening here. Arroyo gets on the wheel, and Noyens all of a sudden thinks, blimey, I've got a bike and a half lengths to make up. If they start messing about and dicing on the descent here, there's going to be a nasty accident. Garcia in the all white with the blue helmet, then the blue shorts and white jersey is that of Juan Manuel Garate, waving his arm to get David Arroyo to come through. Over the top with 9 to go goes Mikel Astoloza and Paolo Tiralongo. The question is, how much of the big cajones does Astoloza have today to try and get back onto this creeper, squabbling amongst themselves? And what about Matti Breschel? Has he got enough in the reserves of courage, or as our colleague Paul Sherwin once said, dig deep into the suitcase of courage and drag himself back to these guys? This is a nasty little descent. Look at this, and it's Arroyo who's gone off the front. David Arroyo from Case de Pagna has got that motorcycle in his sights, and he's using him as a marker. Or is that Noyens ahead of him? What is... was there a rider in front of the motorcycle? Surely not. This is Astoloza and Tiralongo. Wow. I tell you what, Sean, that is the sort of descent that this is the sort of descent that you can shake your rivals to bits on. If you're a confident descender with a lot of courage on descents and a lot of confidence, those people who are slightly less confident, that you'll just blow them to bits on this.
Yes, well, certainly if you're a good ascender and you're feeling good, and that's you know, a big part as well. If you're suffering on the climb a lot, really digging in and just, you know, on the limit all the way up that climb, as we see Breschel, I think he was pretty close to the limit, and then you cannot ascend as well. And you know, the first section we see there, very, very narrow roads, and I think the good thing is the bunch here, they're going to come in, and you know, there's nothing left for them to race for, so it's going to cool things down. But if you came here with the bunch together and they had to race up this one and, you know, do this descent, well, it would be a very dangerous one for everybody, the general classement men, and they would not like that. But it's interesting to see, will they pull out front with this 4, because Tia Longo and Asta Rosa, they could come back if they do not work well together up front.
It's David Arroyo out the front by himself. He's taken the initiative on that descent and really flown down it. That was a very dodgy descent. That's a sort of Isle of Man TT style descent, wasn't it, with walls everywhere. And he's taken his chance and gone with less than 7 to go now. Nick Nguyen struggling to hang on, having gone up the ascent pretty well with David Arroyo. He's struggling to hang on, he's losing ground. But Juan Manuel Garate is a very wily character, and David Garcia is obviously out for something for Jacobo Galicia. They were very, very annoyed at the, or at least the Ezequiel Mosquera and the director sportif Alvaro Pino were extremely annoyed at the tactics of Astana yesterday in just riding the wheel of Ezequiel Mosquera up to the top of the mountain and then denying him the chance for a win. 6 kilometers to go then. I don't think there's any way back for Astalosa unless they start messing about in front. David Arroyo, who looked like he'd gone pretty well, has been caught by the others. That plays in the hands of Nick Noyens, because he didn't. There he goes straight away. Well, he looked like he was suffering, Nick Noyens. Maybe he was just calculating, Sean, that they think he thought they were going to get back, or maybe he thinks, if I don't go now, I'm never going to have a chance.
Well, it was surprising to see him a little bit off the two chasers, but on the descent, I think maybe not confident, and you know, surprising for me, because I would expect him, you know, to be very confident with those riders to get down the descent, and it'll stay very much in the wheels, but just left a little bit of a gap open, then had to make the effort to get back. But I don't think he's certainly on the limit here, because if he was, he would wait for a time and not his attack as soon. So you know, he see the moment when they pull back, Arroyo you know, have a go here and try and go it alone, because there is going to be a lot of attacks here that, you know, if it comes back together again, we will see the same thing over again with 5Ks to go. They're just going to keep on attacking each other all the way to the finish.
Yep, 5K. I think he is going to get a reel back in. There's 3 of them there, and one of them, certainly David Garcia, wants it enough to tow the other 2, I think. I think he's going to be the one who's doing more work than perhaps some of the others. Arroyo's given it a good shot now. He wants to recover just a little bit. Juan Manuel Garate is a very wily character. He'll sit there for as long as he can. Pablo Tuolongo finally gets back to the wheel of Mikel Astalosa. Garate is pulling at the moment with Garcia just behind him. Pulls across, not just smartly, but pulls off very deliberately, making it quite clear he expects David Garcia to come through and do some work. With Arroyo at the back, I think pretty much recovering. Daredevil descent by Arroyo. Didn't quite work for him. Now Nick Noyens is away. He looked as though he was suffering at the end of the climb, and certainly suffering on the descent. I didn't think he was that uncomfortable in descents, but he certainly seemed to be, Sean.
Well, certainly he seemed to be a little bit, you know, off the rear when they came onto the main road from that very technical and narrow road descent, and you know, I don't know, did he just not like to follow the others? Maybe they were pushing it on, and some of the riders here, maybe they know this route as well, and if that's the case, well, then there's an advantage. But certainly, as we see here, they're not leaving him go that easy. They're still pushing it on. David Garcia here is really pushing it on at times, and seems to be quite strong. So it's been interesting now if they can come back together again.
I think Garcia's gone here, look. He's pushing it on again. Sorry to interrupt you, Sean, but I just saw he just suddenly went from the out from the wheel of David Arroyo and just closed that gap.
All together once again.
Yeah, here we go again. And Arroyo off the front, Noyens in his wheel. Let's keep it going, shall we say? Who's got the legs? Who is the really dangerous one here, Sean? Noyens has got a good sprint on him.
Yes, well, I think Noyens is the best sprinter of the group here, of the 4 leaders. The question is who's going to do the work here on the attacking. We see Noyens is doing a lot of attacking here. I'm surprised he's not playing the defensive more and just try and wait and see can he get to the finish with those riders, because if you go on the attack and then somebody counters the attack, well, then it's difficult to match it. And I would be saying that Noyens would have a great chance in the sprint, but there's going to be more attacks, and it also kicks uphill here once again. It's not an easy running at all.
Here's the attack. That's a big attack by David Garcia. We said he was hungry. He wanted to do something, and he's shot out of this quartet. Now, is anybody going to come across him? The guy who looked most canny and most dangerous to me, funnily enough, was Juan Manuel Garate, but he's not reacted this time. He wants Noyens to do the shutting down. Garate already a winner in the Vuelta way back in 2001 and a winner in the Giro d'Italia back in 2006. Garcia, I think, knows he's got not much of a chance in terms of sprint as they run in now in the final couple of kilometers to Ponferrada. We've been to Ponferrada 9 times before, either as a start or a finish venue in the Vuelta a España. Last time was in 2006 where we left Ponferrada. The last time we finished here was in '89. Roberto Pagnin of Italy winning on that occasion. No time to look at the sights today. Well, Garate having a quick look. Bit of a tourist shot. Garcia out by himself, got to give it absolutely everything. Oh, don't overshoot the corner, sir. And there we go. And Garcia at the moment with 2 kilometers to go now knows he's got to commit himself absolutely and totally. He's got a reasonable gap, but Arroyo is it gone? No, it's Noyens who's gone off after him, and now goes Juan Manuel Garate. Arroyo into the wheel of Garate. 2 kilometers to go. There's still time to shut it down, Sean, but it's getting more and more unlikely.
Yes, it is getting a very dangerous situation now for Noyens. He really has to, he has to be really powerful and really good to bridge this one, because we see Garcia, have a nice advantage there. He has about 6-7 seconds at least, and to close it down, you have to be powerful. And if Noyens gets away on his own, which he's not, is back together, so I think it's going to be over for these 3.
Yeah, well, they're now playing again. Not so good. Remember that David Garcia won the Tour of Turkey this year overall, but that is his biggest win. 30 years of age. He's ridden in all the domestic races. Tour of Catalonia, Tour of Burgos, Tour of the Basque Country, Tour of Galicia, in fact. Noyens goes again. He's just going for the place now, because up the road, David Garcia is the man who's stolen a march on everybody else. 30 years of age now. Winner, as I say, of the Tour of Turkey this year. But he's had a good string of top 20 places so far in this year's Vuelta. 20th yesterday, 17th at Swences, 14th in Portoliano, and they've all gone under the 1 kilometer to go banner. It's a case of will Garate catch Noyens? We can't see how big the gap is, but at the moment it's looking safe, Sean.
Yes, I think it's over for Noyens. He's left it too late to get out of the group, and our leader here, David Garcia, is certainly going to hold on. We could see the straight there. There was certainly 6 or 8 seconds of an advantage, unless somebody is really powerful, and I don't think there's anybody in the group like that, because they've all suffered in this climb. We can see they're suffering the last number of kilometers.
Although they are behind, just playing for places now, I think. David Garcia, 30 years of age. He's been a professional for 9 years, though. He's turned pro very, very early. He's won 1 big race, the Tour of Turkey, only this year, so coming into a purple patch of form. Maybe the fact that he's done less races than maybe some of the others. He's only done 70 races, 70 days this year, some 2 weeks less racing than Juan Manuel Garate, but about the same as Nick Noyens behind him. But David Garcia is going to take a victory in the Vuelta a España, his biggest victory today. The Tour of Turkey was big, but this is much bigger for him. Well done, sir. Victory for David Garcia. Just over 5 hours in the saddle. Who's going to take the sprint for second? It's Noyens and Garate who are battling it out. As Arroyo go back to them. No, they're two there. Noyens with the better sprint on him. Looks over his shoulder, gets second ahead of Juan Manuel Garate. Then David Arroyo in for third spot. Fourth spot, sorry. Oh, has he gone? No, it's Paulo Tirolongo who's caught them. Tirolongo takes fourth. Astolotha of Euskaltel takes fifth and sixth place to David Arroyo. Well, that'll be a popular victory, especially after yesterday when Ezequiel Mosquera was denied a victory at the top of the mountain. That was going to be their real crowning achievement, certainly of the Vuelta a España in terms of stage, going for stage victories, but it didn't happen for him. Alberto Contador nipping out from behind his wheel, and then Levi Leipheimer coming out likewise and depriving Mosquera of a win that certainly his director sportive Alvaro Pino thought he should have been given for helping out in the first place, or doing all the work, should we say. Not so much of the helping out, it wasn't a deliberate decision, but doing all the work. But well done to this man. He worked very hard on that last climb, Sean, to get back up there, but he did look as though he wanted it all the way through the last 15-20 kilometers. He was the one who was doing a lot of the work, pulling people back up. Once they get dropped again, he'd pull them back up once again, and he did look as though he was hungry.
Yes, well, certainly hungry, and I think had got the legs as well, and that's what it's all about. If you feel, strong in the end, well, it's so much easier. A lot of riders were really on the limit on that climb, and we see Garcia there after the climb as well. He gave it a few pulls on the front and seems to be, had a lot of energy left. And when he went away, I think the attack was probably quite impressive. And it's hard to calculate unless you're out there, with the riders. When you go in the attack, if somebody puts in a huge attack, well, then you say he's really strong, he's going to be difficult to pull back. And if you're on the limit a bit, well, then you say to yourself, this is going to be the danger one. To get this guy back is going to be looks very, very, very difficult.
David Garcia, 30 years of age, victor in the Tour of Turkey this year. Earlier on, at the beginning of the year, back during the European Classic season, and had a very good season. Then tops and tails it with a win in the Vuelta a España. Only the second time he's taken part in the Vuelta. And after 5 hours, 2 minutes and 27 seconds, he is the man with the victor. He'll stand on the top step of the podium with those flowers being given to him today, and he will relish that for the rest of his career and the rest of his life, of course. Astana back on the front with under 10 kilometers to go, and Cofidis had been doing a lot of the work, and Rabobank, to try and keep the gap to something sensible that didn't threaten their riders up in the top 15 and top 10 respectively. And nobody's going to take any chances here. Nobody needs to. We'll take a commercial break, and then we'll be back to see them run in for the last 7 kilometers or so. The question now will be, what is the gap between Juan Manuel Garate finishing? He was lying 26th on the general classification, 29 minutes and 29 minutes and 16 seconds down. Arroyo just a bit behind him, 33 seconds. What will be the gap between this group? With him that's come in, this is Ignatiev, and the peloton coming in. Remember, it was a gap of about 10 minutes. David Garcia also up there on the general classification as well. Garcia lying 23rd overall at 26 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, if they've got 10 minutes of a gap, Sean, he'll be up well within the top 15.
Yes, he certainly will. He'll move up a long ways in the general classement. And apologies, I missed him out there a bit earlier on. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Stanners will do. Will they really put it on at a fast pace? Of course, they're on the front here, and that's understandable. On the climb, they would have been up front, and to make this descent and just ride it at a pace which is safe, and not leave some other teams who might really go crazy on the descent. but you know, it's going to be quite a big advantage, and certainly, you know, these riders who are at that, you know, that position in the 23rd position at the 26 minutes, they're going to move up a long ways in their general classement.
Well, at the moment, if he continues where he is, he already moves into the top 15. They've got 6 minutes of an advantage. He will actually sit just ahead of Jean Garderet and just below Nicolas Roche, if it was to finish in exactly the same order with 6 minutes gap. But as you can see, it's already bigger. If he was to get a 10-minute advantage, he would end up ahead of Jürgen van Gulen and just below Marzio Bruggen. Radio Tour saying that the peloton has split up already, and I wonder whether, Sean, the chaps from Cofidis and Rabobank are pushing on it, or a few of the guys are pushing on at the front of the from the front of the peloton to limit that gap. Well, here we are.
Well, I think it's certainly the Astana team are going to, you know, been on the front for quite a while. We haven't seen them because, of course, we're just concentrating on the finish and the battle for the stage victory. But you know, the Astanas have really taken up the pace, setting the pace on the climb. And as we can see it here, they're very much to the front. I think the split in the group is a lot of riders who are starting to get tired at the end of this mountain. At the end of this race, of course. And we've seen in the past couple of days when we hit the, you know, the final mountain of the day, there's a lot of guys looking around and looking for the bus. And I think it's just that guys who have no interest really of doing anything here because they're not in the general classement, and the stage placings are totally out of the question today.
Mauro Sant'Ambrogio was doing a lot of work on the front there, and pushing on once again is Chavanel. Sant'Ambrogio doing the work for Lampre there because, of course, Marzio Bruggen's time or a place on the general classification will be threatened, of course, if the gap is 10 minutes or so. I don't think it's, well, I'm not sure actually how close it's going to be.
Well, it looks very like it's going to be over the 10 minutes because we see there the 7-minute advantage and the 6 kilometers still to go for the main bunch of riders, and it's certainly going to be, you know, close to the 15 minutes. So certainly, you know, the riders who were down in that place, as we see David Garcia, Garate, they're all going to move up into a quite interesting position in the general classement. Yeah,
Garate, if he gains 10 minutes, will move up into the top 15 behind, or just ahead, funnily enough, of Nicolas Roche. Will go down. Roche will want to be in this group if he could possibly be there. I haven't seen any green jerseys for Crédit Agricole in this group, as will Jean Garderet from AG2R Le Mondial. We can't see him in this front section of this group anyway. But certainly Cofidis are willing to drive it on and drive it on. They really don't want to lose out on the places of, let alone Chavanel, who's a long, long way down. But the big one is David Moncoutier, who's sitting just inside the top 10. They certainly won't want to lose that. They're fair flying along now, Sean, trying to limit this gap. They just left it a little bit too late, didn't they? Inattentiveness, maybe.
Yes, well, it's surprised that they allowed the gap to grow out to that advantage a long ways from the finish. And as you say, they started to take it up quite late. They should have just put a rider or two on the front and start, you know, keeping a pace where you hold them there at that 10-12 minutes. And but then I suppose they were also concerned with Nguyen's up there. If you hold it at that, and then there's other teams take it up, we could have seen pull back in the final.
True. It's a fine balancing act. And directors sportifs have to make that call at some point during the race. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. Lampre and Cofidis now doing their work on the front. Rabobank's no longer worried about doing anything. This is the 10th time that the Vuelta a España has finished in Ponferrada. We started at Sudilero this morning. 202 kilometers later, David Garcia of the Jacobo Galicia squad, whose director sportif Alvaro Pino was less than chuffed, should we say, yesterday, along with his co-director sportif Jose Angel Vidal. The two of them less than chuffed with what they thought was the poor sportsmanship of Astana. when Alberto Contador took the stage victory yesterday, having sat behind the wheel of Ezequiel Mosquera all the way up. Well, he's had a fine year, Sylvain Chavanel. He's pushing along on the front now as well, using his great strength. He's turned into a very, very good all-round rider. He always has been a very, very good all-round rider, but he's been very prominent, very aggressive and very strong this year. Splitting up this look as we come into the finish at Ponferrada, and still the gap. They're trying to drag it back, Sean, as much as they can with just 2 kilometers to go. And as you say, look, it's 11:40 already. It's going to be closer to the 12.5-minute mark, 13-minute mark, maybe more. Now, if that's the case, David Garcia was at 26:30 this morning. If he finishes an extra 13 minutes down, he will be roughly 13th on the overall classification, and who knows what might happen from there. Certainly riders who will be under direct threat are Marzio Brugigin of Lampre, which is why Lampre are on the front here. David Moncoutier of the Cofidis squad is lying a little bit further up, maybe not quite as in the danger zone as Brugigin at the moment, but even so, and Astana making sure they're keeping themselves well to the front at the moment, keeping out of trouble. It's going to be touch and go as to whether Brugigin keeps his place in the overall classification at 12th at the moment. No help from other teams such as Gerolsteiner though for Oliver Zorg. Maybe they just can't. Jürgen van Gulen from CSC was on a big long break yesterday, up in 13th spot at the moment. Haven't seen hide nor hair of him, and we certainly haven't seen Nicholas Roach either.
But this group is quite a big group. It's stretched a long ways here, and just a single file of riders, but there's certainly maybe 60 riders, 70 riders. Difficult to see that, but we can see they're still coming around that corner, so I would say 60 certainly riders in this main group.
And some of those names we just mentioned could well be tucked in there quite happily.
Yes, well, of course, you know, they're just going to sit in this group, sit in here, and if there's teams going to take it up, as we see Cofidis and Lampre, you know, really riding for it, just lead them do it and hang in there.
Is that Roach? I can see just about 25-30 back. Very possibly one. Still, it's Cofidis pushing, riding as hard as they can now to make sure that they limit the loss as far as possible to David Moncoutier, 9th overall in the general classification at 9 minutes and 32 seconds. They've been sharing the work on the front. Chavanel has been doing a lot of the work, and he's been sharing the work on the front with Lampre. It's mainly been Sant'Ambrogio who's done a lot of work. Here they come. 14 minutes and 22 seconds is the gap. That makes it 14 minutes, makes it 12:10 back, which means that certainly Brugigin would just about be safe, but Van Gulen would be outside, as would Roach and Gadre. So a good ride by David Garcia, good riding by Cofidis, though. They had to do that because Moncoutier is at 9:32 and David Garcia has clawed back 14 minutes.
Yes, well, if you know, a great move for the riders who were up there in that position, David Garcia and also Garate, and they will certainly, you know, move up a long ways in the general classroom. I did see Nicholas Roach coming in there. He was looking at the clock actually as he went over the line to see what the advantage for the breakaway was. Not so bad for Arroyo either, by the way. We didn't mention him. 39 seconds down on Garcia, which is good for him. Sebastian Minard, the second of the Cofidis riders, at 2:38 there. Jose Luis Arrieta came in finally at 2 minutes and 40. Ignatieff at 5:15, just blown away on the last hill of the day. Venotti too. Jacobs had already gone. Hausler, who really kick-started the chase of Arrieta, at 6:59. Then Kevin de Weert, the last man, or the first man, should I say, over the line of the peloton. The Belgian bringing the Cofidis team home.
This is the classification, general classification. Let's have a look at this then. Moncoutier keeps his 9th. Zorg is at 10th. Martinez just above that. Nothing happening within the top 10. Let's wait till we just go down a little bit further. The people under threat, remember, Marzio Bruzigin, Van Gulen, Daniel Moreno, Bruzigin, oh, just hangs on in there ahead of Garcia and now Juan Manuel Garate. Jurgen Van Gulen gets pushed downwards. David Arroyo goes up. Nicolas Roche goes down, but not too bad. Gadre hangs in there as well. Javier Moreno and Alberto Losada. So great gains by Garate and David Garcia. And good on those people who managed to hang in there, like Nicolas Roche, to limit their losses. The Bruzigin just getting in there. Van Gulen just losing 2 places. But a win for David Garcia of Jacobo Galicia today. Well, another fascinating stage in the Vuelta a España. It's been really interesting this year. And congratulations to the 30-year-old David Garcia. What a year he's having. Wins the Tour of Turkey back in April. And now has won a stage in his national tour. This is by far his best season as a professional, then 30 years of age. He's been a professional for a long time now, 9 years in total. And in his second Vuelta a España takes a stage victory. And that is something that will live with him and his family for the rest of his career and the rest of his life. Something to look back on. And the big gainers, apart from Garcia, Juan Manuel Garate and David Arroyo within that group. But all the riders in the breakaway doing a good job. Cofidis having to work very hard along with Lampre to shut things down and limit the loss as much as possible. They only got back 3 minutes in the end, 3.5 minutes. The gap had gone out to 17 minutes and they came in at 14:32 back. They could have done with chasing a little earlier. But another interesting stage in the Vuelta, Sean. It's turning out to be a bit of a cracker, this one.
Yes, it certainly is, and today's stage was a very interesting one, and with the general classement movement there, riders, moving into a possible 10th place in the final classement, it certainly makes it more interesting, and we can see the bunch, really had to get active in the end, but did not arrive to pull it back a lot in the end because of that difficult last 15 kilometers.
Tomorrow's stage, slightly shorter, 186.3 kilometers from Ponferrada to Zamora. And just the one classified climb tomorrow, the Alto de Arcebo. Maybe look out for people trying to pick up bonus seconds in the sprints as we go along tomorrow. And that battle for the points jersey continues. But from Sean and I, and from a very happy David Garcia, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon. Bye for now.